Hello and welcome to race number 8, the penultimate round of the HARC Canada campaign. We're here in Clarington, Ontario for a 51 lap race. It's roughly 200 kilometers distance at this 2.5 mile road course. A lot of high speed corners. Should be interesting to see who comes out on top today. Dan Bouchard out of Ottawa, Ontario in the 037. Your winner from Speedway 660 is going to be starting on pole today. A great qualifying effort from him. He's going to have Ali Nelson out of Alaska and that Discover Alaska machine starting to his outside. Behind them, two experienced veterans in Tyler Thaber and Jeffrey Finguy. As the pace car's in, waiting on the green flag, and there it is now. Dan Bouchard brings him to the line. I think Ali Nelson might have actually beat him to the line. It's going to be interesting to see if Nelson can get clear in a turn one, and the answer to that is a affirmative no, as Dan Bouchard goes to the front. Tyler Thaber trying to slip by as well, but now he's stuck on the outside as they fight for track position. They've got a lot of runoff here, but there's only one ideal line as they headed up through three. Going on board Zachary Fitzwater Sr. here as he started around 12th. Not the best effort for him as he'll be looking to improve over the course of the day to help his championship efforts, but you can see the long stream of cars behind him, still too wide through much of the field as we try to sort themselves out through Moss Corner and people find their drafting partners down this long straightaway. Jeffrey Finguy would catch Tyler Thaber and give him the bumper on lap number 3, pushing him out wide out of Moss Corner, getting alongside down the straightaway. He's going to try and use Dan Bouchard's draft to get ahead of the number 89. It's a bit tricky here to pass. Usually it takes quite a long time of effort as he continues his drive to try and get by the number 89 into turn 8 as he's got him clear into turn 9 now. Behind them, Damir Bezhenov and Kyle Collins racing for position. Damir Bezhenov has had an interesting couple of rounds back after going flipping at Granby. He's apparently doesn't have any lasting dizziness because he's back on track driving strong, but Kyle Collins in the 48 up his inside. Damir's going to hold on in there on the inside, but will become the inside of the next corner. Kyle Collins tries to close the door, isn't able to do so, but Kyle Collins looking like he's through into turn 3, but Damir showing his expertise on the brakes. I cannot believe he didn't go off track there and somehow manages to swing it all the way around the outside with a perfect line through turn number 4 and up towards Moss Corner to maintain the position. Tristan Wilhoit competing with Brian Hart for the position is going to get things done. Nice early start for the 16 as his teammate started further up the field. Now looking back up to the front where Tyler Thaber is trying to challenge the number 92. You snooze, you lose, and the 89 gets Jeffrey Finguy out of the way and slips back into second behind Dan Bouchard, who's held a consistent first position since the start of the green flag. Further back around 8th position, Cassie Gertis, Annie Thomas, and Casey Lester going at it for the 8th spot. Thomas took a look on Cassie Gertis heading onto the back straightaway, but looks like Cassie had a better run onto the straight, and with some drafting help from Casey Lester and tracking down Nick Pericles in front of her, it looks like she'll be able to hold Annie Thomas off as Casey Lester actually picked Cassie Gertis to try and follow through on Annie Thomas, but Thomas's experience pays off as she slips back into 9th. She's won at a road course before back in Montreal in 2016. Now we're racing for the lead. Tyler Thaber finally able to challenge the number 037, gets alongside him on the front straightaway and makes the pass look easy down through turn 1. Got him clear by a couple of car lengths. In fact, that's going to leave Jeffrey Finguy with an opportunity to try and make it stick. He's going to have to do it around the outside, but it'll become the inside into the next corner as Jeffrey Finguy trying to get clear, hugs the apex of the corner very nicely and is going to be able to get the job done. The 89 and the 92 started in the second row. Now they are first and second. Again, taking a look back at the group around 10th place with Cassie Gertis and Annie Thomas once again doing battle out of Moss Corner. Now it's Zachary Fitzwater Sr. with help from JF Finguy trying to get by Casey Lester. He's unable to mount much of a charge. He's holding strong on the outside. Casey Lester is, but Zachary Fitzwater Sr. manages to keep his nose in there and prevents the 013 from chopping him off. And Fitzwater is going to get through. Now it's JF Finguy's turn as he's going to try and continue holding the 013 off the ideal line. And JF Finguy looks almost clear. Lester is going to fall back in line. That makes sense. Tony Tavaleras and Ike Durbin racing for position just behind these two. Lots of battles all throughout the field in these early laps as we're starting to come up towards the first round of pit stops. Taking a look at this Ike Durbin Tony Tavaleras battle some more as they're still side by side through turn 2, and Tony looking to get it done through turn 3. Tony's did pretty well at this track back in 2017, and in fact it was his only run out of the in the top 18 that whole season, and he's looking to potentially get a top 10 run today. As he's going to make the pass stick on the number 86 of Ike Durbin, with Damir Bejenov running just behind those two. Diego Yepes and Al Lagasse racing for position through turns 8 and 9. Al Lagasse holds it around the outside through turn 9, and that gives him the optimal line out of the final corner, turn 10. And down towards turn 1, the Guinness machine unable to pose a major defense. Can Al Lagasse clear him? Just about, I'd say, and Al Lagasse is going to move up into the position. Yepes with one final lunge down into turn 2. It's going to be hard to make this one stick. And sure enough, it would be Al Lagasse holding position. He's won at a road course before, back in Calgary in 2017. JF Finguy and Fitzwater going at it. JF Finguy's made up a few positions so far this race. A pretty strong effort. Makes sense if he's sharing any sort of semblance of a setup with his teammate Jeffrey at the very front of the field. And JF's going to get by and pass the number 59. Lester's going to have to wait for later. Tristan Wilhoit and Max Anderson going for position a little bit further back from those folks, as Wilhoit in the 16 trying to make up some spots. Brian Hart, your championship leader, a rough qualifying start and is currently stuck in the midfield behind these two. Just needs to keep his nose clean and out of trouble if he wants to hold on to the points lead heading out of this, the penultimate round of the season. A hard-fought battle here with Anderson and Wilhoit. Wilhoit gets through, it looks like, just about. Anderson trying to do what Damir did earlier. Holds it in there. And he's going to have the inside through turn 4. It's going to be flat out, and they're both going to be pushing hard, trying to keep themselves ahead down into Moss Corner. You gotta admire the bravery on those two, holding it flat out side by side through that difficult downhill corner. But Max Anderson will have to give up the position to Tristan Wilhoit, as a bit further up again, Cassidy Gertis is going to make the move on the number 84 of Nick Pericles to get by. Another position gained for that rookie. Tyler Thaber comes in for his first pit stop. We're going to see more pit stops than in Montreal for this one, as the HARC officials have required a softer tire setup and smaller fuel tanks on the cars for this race. So we may see 2 or 3 pit stops. Tyler Thaber with that strategy is going to go for 3, as we got trouble behind them. Tony Tavaleras and Casey Lester into the wall and out of the race, it looks like, as both cars come to a halt. That's such a shame for them. They were having their best runs of the season, I think, as they're both mired at the bottom 3 of points, but both will DNF today, as Jeffrey Finguy and Nelson in from first and second. They're going to go for a bit of an undercut here. Tyler Thaber was going for an undercut too, but Dan Bouchard and others stay out longer. Kyle Collins and Ike Durbin were racing side by side past the pit road. They remain on the racetrack, and among the around top 10 on track currently. Kyle Collins is going to get the pass done in the Illumicraft machine and settle back in single file as they're going to hit the pit lane next time around. Everyone has now made one pit stop except for Nicky Martinez, who's going to take the lead on lap number 16. This is a 51 lap race, so Nicky needs to make it to the end of lap 17 in order to be on track for a 2-stop strategy. Everyone else seems to be committed to a 3-stop at this point. But the NOS machine going to stay out a bit longer, but would end up hitting just a lap later and 1 lap short. Patrick Smith did an undercut and is going to slice and dice his way through those cars coming back onto the racetrack. Patrick Smith up to 17th position after starting 28th. He's in a good position to get the hard charger bonus for this race, as that is a great use of an undercut to get his way past a few cars. He's still catching traffic in front as they're still trying to warm up their tires, and the field is concertinaing around Moss Corner and onto the back straightaway. A strong performance so far for the 04. Oh, Fred Flintstone and Tristan Wilhoit get together. Wilhoit down into the wall. Probably going to have some damage on that number 16 car. Doesn't look off the pace, but a big dent on the side of the 16. And not what you want to have on the side of your car on a high-speed track like this, where it will probably impact more than usual. Tyler Thaber and Jeffrey Finguy are first and second. A decent-sized gap for Tyler Thaber after pitting early. It'll be interesting to see how that shapes up. Cassie Gertis up alongside Benoit Lethere-Ravine, gives him the bumper a little bit and gets through with the position. Now it's Annie Thomas trying to get by the 15 of Benoit Lethere-Ravine. Going to try it up towards the Continental Tire sign and down through 4. It's going to be around the outside for Annie Thomas. And that's a great move on the number 15 as she's going to get through. Isn't able to challenge the 7 yet, but gets away well out of Moss Corner, and a great position gained for the number 93. As Jeffrey Finguy has caught Tyler Thaber for the lead. These two have been battling all day, and they're going to continue to do so as we're around 20 laps in, still less than halfway. But these two have a lot of respect for each other and racing each other, keeping plenty of distance, racing hard but fair. As Tyler Thaber going for his 2nd win of the year, won back in Hay River, and is currently 2nd place in points behind only Brian Hart. And Brian Hart is not having a good day, so if Tyler Thaber can put it all together here with either a 1st or a 2nd place run, he's in a good position to win the championship this year. Jeffrey Finguy has a lot less to lose. He's trying to break a winless streak of 10 years, going all the way back to 2014 at Eurospeedway Lausitz. Came so close earlier this year at the other road course, and this appears to be his specialty as he will race down the straightaway. They're still dead even as we go past the Canadian Tire sign. Dan Bouchard and others back in the pack are probably loving seeing this as it gets them back in the hunt, but they stay side by side through 8 and through turn 9, and we've now been side by side for a lap, but it looks like Jeffrey Finguy's finally going to get it done. A well-earned pass for the lead, but it's definitely cost them both some pretty significant time. Annie Thomas and Cassie Gertis racing for position out of turn 10, and they get together there. Gertis into the wall, back across the track, and Benoit Lethere-Ravine with nowhere to go as cars scramble into the grass. Damir Bejinov makes some good, well-timed passes there on the inside, but that's heavy damage for Cassie Gertis. It will take her out of the race, but Benoit Lethere-Ravine and Annie Thomas will stay on the racetrack. Tristan Wilhoit comes into the pits for his 2nd stop early on lap number 22. He will be able to make it on a 3-stop like the rest of the field, but he's coming in early to fix some of the damage that he picked up earlier on after hitting the right side wall on the front straightaway there. JF Finguy and William Brock racing for position inside the top 15. These two have had a pretty interesting day overall with lots of back and forth battles. as JF trying to get up through the field. William Brock just looking to have a good run in the 4 car, I think. He's currently dead last in points, and that DeWalt is not going to be challenging for the championship anytime soon, even with a good run, but nonetheless just looking to end the season off strong, as JF is going to end up getting the position through turn 3. Tyler Thaber sitting second, but being hounded by Dan Bouchard in the 037. 89's strategy of pitting early has put him in an interesting position where he's a bit off the pace, and the 037 gets into the 89, and into the wall goes Tyler Thaber, and just like Tristan Wilhoit earlier, he's going to be left with a big gash on the right side of that car. Still managing to fight for that position with Dan Bouchard, surprisingly. Gallo waiting in the wings, trying to see who will go through first, as Jeffrey Finguy runs away with it for now. And Tyler Thaber would end up holding onto the position. A miraculous job to hold onto that car. But around half a lap later, it would be Dan Bouchard getting by the 89 car in the 037, as that 89 does appear to be hampered a little bit. He's coming into the pits, as is race leader Jeffrey Finguy, trying to use the opportunity to come in for the undercut and get ahead of his competitors. And we'll see whether Tyler Thaber can get that car fixed well enough to compete for the win again. Oh, that's Caitlin Sang, who is already at the very tail end of the field. Really having a rough day, and it goes from bad to worse as she blows up down into turn number 8. She smartly pulls that car off track to not leave too much of an oil plume on the racing surface, but that'll be the end of the day for the 07 at the track that she once captured the championship at. The 88 also having some trouble now, as he falls well back from the F1 car of Fred Flintstone. Stuck in second gear, can't get it above that. And that's going to put him in a very vulnerable position as we get out of Moss Corner. It's funny, he was actually able to keep pace or even gain in the slow speed section. That is definitely not going to be the case on this uphill. Yeah, I'm not sure whether it's transmission related or whether it's something to do with the power output, but something is seriously wrong with the 88 Dodge Challenger. As cars go streaming by on the inside. Al Lagasse and Ike Durbin get the worst of this, gets stuck and pinched in. Not sure what Jacob Young's doing there, just needs to get by the 88. And if Sylvain Lesavage was looking to get in the pit into the pit lane, he's not going to be able to do so this lap, and he's going to get boxed out for another lap. That's a very rough break for the 88. Back behind, around the end of the top 10, we've got Nick Pericles, Damir Bejanoff, and Zachary Fitzwater Sr. Battling for position, as Damir drops to the 84's inside. He's going to try and make a run of it. Now 59 trying to wait in the wings just to see who will get the position faster. Actually goes with the 84 now, but that 73 has a big head of steam down the backstretch, as that Pontiac clearly not lacking for power. Now it's Dan Bouchard in from the current race lead, along with Gallo. JF Finguy ended up taking over the lead for a moment, with Kyle Collins in second, William Brock in third. The car in front there, Sylvain Lesavage, is almost a lap down. They would come in the next lap, and this would hand the lead back over to Jeffrey Finguy, who has a few seconds advantage over Dan Bouchard, who pitted a bit later. Then it's Gallo and Ali Nelson, third and fourth. Behind them, it's Annie Thomas getting by her teammate and team owner Zachary Fitzwater Sr. Lucas Knight trying to do the same, and the 43 waiting to do so as well, as Fitzwater Sr. Pitted later amongst this group of cars and is still appearing to get his tires up to temperature. Max Anderson would end up getting the job done, as these four all slide by Fitzwater just in the last half lap or so. Behind them, it's Brian Hart, but Fred Flintstone goes for a spin after contact with the back of Patrick Smith, and that will let a few cars by through on the inside as we start the long run down the backstretch. Lap 33, we got a field flyby. Jeffrey Finguy in first, Bouchard, Gallo, and then Nelson, your top four. They're the only ones with a realistic shot at the victory, it looks like, as it's a long way back to Bejenov, Pericles, Thomas, Knight, Anderson, and Fitzwater Sr. Then another gap back to Brian Hart and Smith, who have a gap over Finguy, Lotharavine, and too many cars to count in that pack around the 20th or so spot. Jake Young, one of the last car without damage. Then it's Tristan Wilhoit, and finally Sylvain Lesavage well behind this group of cars as well. Max Anderson and Zachary Fitzwater Sr. racing for position, as Knight just got by Thomas just in front of these two. Fitzwater Sr. going to have the edge down into turn 1 and is going to look to get the pass done. Anderson trying to hang it on the outside. Oh, Knight's got a problem up ahead as he makes contact with Thomas. I think he's got a tire down, and Anderson in the back of the 8 goes spinning. 43 keeps it off the racing line for now, trying to get that car back refired. It's going, but not very quickly. There must be something wrong with the 43 after that contact. Oh, look out, right on the apex of the corner, and Bridgette pit with nowhere to go but into the back of the number 43, as Thaber narrowly missed that one himself, as the 43 would go out of the race and the 77 would be hampered by damage for the remainder of the day. Back up front, it's the number 92 of Jeffrey Finguy holding on to the race lead, but the cars behind are starting to close in on the number 92. This is the tough part about the early strategy that the 92 has, is that it makes them a little bit vulnerable later on in the run. But Tyler Thaber in much worse shape than he was earlier on, as with the damage fixed, he is back more competitive with the rest of the field, but at the very tail end of it in around 21st position. Now racing for second, Gallo is there on Bouchard. Bouchard not making quick enough headway for Gallo's liking, and the Texan goes to second place in the Mobil 1 machine. Big name sponsorship on board that car, and Lacuna Gallo showing why she deserves it, as Jeffrey Finguy, with Gallo hot on his heels, takes the opportunity to hit the pit road alongside Ali Nelson. Tyler Thaber during this round of pit stops would put new tires on, but then something went wrong on the 89. The car would not refire and get going, and that would be the end of his day. Gallo would then come in, leaving Bouchard as the last car out. It'll be interesting to see if he goes for a little bit of an alternate strategy here. Gallo racing off the pit lane. Here comes the 92 of Jeffrey Finguy. It's going to be awfully close, but Finguy just narrowly gets in front of the 47. They were dead even on pit exit. Now it's going to be up to Gallo to get those tires reheated and try and stay within the 92's reach to have a go at him in the closing laps. Now it's Bouchard in the pit road, Thaber behind, still stranded, as Bouchard gets that car back going. He just did a 2-tire stop there, and Finguy hasn't yet appeared in the picture. This is great news for Dan Bouchard. He's going to be on the defense these last few laps, though, with the aging set of right side tires. They went for lefts only. There's a lot of right turns on this track, so the lefts are the ones that get more wear. As Sylvain Lesavage's day goes from bad to worse, he was already the last car on track, but more issues for that Dodge Challenger, and that'll end his day. JF Finguy and Andy Thomas racing for position. Some contact there. Oh, they're still hooked together as Thomas and JF Finguy get together down into turn 1, and JF Finguy is out of the race. That looked almost premeditated by Andy Thomas. Let's take another look at this. So we get some contact off the corner. He corrects it, but then Thomas just keeps her foot in it as JF starts to come back across, trying to get back on the normal racing line. And the stewards aren't going to take too kindly for that. Thomas was involved in an incident earlier on in the race, too, on that front straightaway. So we'll see what happens there, as Jeffrey Finguy has caught the 037. The 037's struggling a bit on pace, about a second a lap slower than the number 92 at this point early on the run. Jeffrey Finguy with the fresh tires Now, the 037's not struggling for straight line speed, though. I'll give him that. But I don't think he'll be able to hold on to it. A little bit of contact there between the top two. Glad they were able to sort it out. And Jeffrey Finguy is gone and already has a pretty substantial 10-car length lead as Gallo and Nelson come up on the back of the 037. They're going to want to dispatch Dan Bouchard pretty quickly if they want any chance of catching the 92. As Brian Hart and Kyle Collins are racing for a spot just at the end of the top 10 right now. Brian Hart has had a pretty unnoteworthy day, but has kept his nose clean and has made up a few positions over the course of the day. And that's another one dispatched with Kyle Collins set back a spot. Dan Bouchard doing a really good job defending. He's slow through the corners, but make sure he gets a good exit, and that makes it challenging for Gallo or Nelson to really give him anything to fight with, as Nelson and Gallo were side by side in their own battle there for third place. Finguy still running away with it. He's not too far off in the distance, but these two not helping each other at all. Nelson gets third, but at what cost? Around the 5th spot or so, we've got Zachary Fitzwater Sr., Damir Bejenoff, and Nick Pericles racing for position as Bejenoff and Fitzwater Sr. go side by side. Nick Pericles set his fastest lap of the race there in 7th, catching these two over the last lap or so, and is now going to be looking to take advantage. Bejenoff through on the number 59, and Nick Pericles is looking like he's going to be able to do so as well. Fantastic run by all three of these drivers in this race. Fitzwater Sr. might get himself back up towards the points lead as we head into the final race of the season. Started off the season very well, has kind of faltered a little bit in the midsection, but is doing well now as the HARC officials have come down hard on Annie Thomas. That's a 10-second stop-and-go penalty for the 93, and that'll put her right towards the back of the field after a couple of incidents and some pretty aggravated contact against the number 29, as Ali Nelson, with less than 3 laps to go, finally dispatches the 037 of Dan Bouchard. With more wear on the tires, things equalized a bit. Dan Bouchard showed some really good defending skills, but he'll be lucky to stay on the podium. As in the final laps, Diego Yepes gets into the back of the number 4 car, sends him into the wall a little bit less violently than some other hits that we've seen, and it won't have to hang on to that car very long. As we're now on the final lap, and we pan back to our race leader, Jeffrey Finguy, who has just a few corners to go. Jeffrey started in HARC back in 2014 and won in his 12th start. Since then, he's come so close to replicating that performance on many occasions, but has come up short. Today, though, he's been truly unstoppable. He fought his way to the front multiple times, managed his tires and pit strategy beautifully, and opened a 3.5-second lead on his competition in the final laps. Through the final few corners, it's with a mixture of joy and relief that HARC can finally welcome one of the biggest names of our sport back to the winner's circle. Jeffrey Finguy just won at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Elation at long last for Finguy Saitomi Incorporated. 23 laps led on the day, and finally some hardware coming home. Ali Nelson finishes in 2nd place. Then it was Dan Bouchard, your pole sitter, who tried the 2-tire gamble at the end, but it didn't quite pay off. Lucina Gallo in 4th. Then it's Bejenoff, Pericles, and Zachary Fitzwater Sr. as the next pack back. Brian Hart, ever the consistent driver, finishes 8th. Patrick Smith up 19 spots from the start on pit strategy and good driving up to 9th. And then it was Kyle Collins rounding up the top 10. Taking a look at the point standings, there are 9 drivers that will go into the season finale with a chance at the championship. But Brian Hart has a big lead out on top. He's got a 19-point advantage over Damir Bejenoff. Then it's Tyler Thaber, Lucas Knight, Fitzwater Sr., Nozomi, Nelson, Pericles, and Gallo going for it. Jeffrey Finguy, despite his win, not eligible, but he'll be happy to be back in the top 10 in points for sure. Next time out, we'll crown one last race victor and the season champion at the largest oval in Canada as the series heads to the 5/8 mile oval at Jukasa Motor Speedway for the season finale. We'll see you there.